What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football from Up North podcast. I'm your host, Clayton, and joining me, as always, is Javi. What's up, buddy?
What's up? How's it going tonight?
Exhausted, man, but you know what? Getting ready. We get some good football games tomorrow for
all day long.
Yeah, the American Thanksgiving games are going to be awesome as usual. Here in Canada, obviously, we don't have Thanksgiving. This time we had our Thanksgiving last month, but nonetheless, we still get if we want to have turkey tomorrow, we can have turkey tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just watch some football. That's what we can do. So we got to get it to our week 12 vote, slouch, and the sneaky episode.
Boom.
But before we do that, I'm sure you guys have heard this. If you guys have been listening to this podcast for the last couple episodes, for sure. We have partnered up with 247 Clash Daily Fantasy Sports Entertainment. It's a DFS site that is a player versus player format based on fantasy points. Does that make sense to you, Javi?
Yes, it does.
So it's kind of based around like the whole pools thing where you got a list of, it's basically the way I could say it, it's point spread pretty much is what it is, but it's fantasy points, not based on points. So each week you're going to get a certain number of lines to play, and pretty much the person with the most correct wins the pot. Keep in mind, there could be multiple winners. For example, last week there were 4 winners that split the pot. They each got 8 of 13 correct. And our boy Riley was one of those winners. So
yes,
good.
I was
good on
one
him.
away. I was one away. A last minute decision really sewered me.
Yeah, I blew it, man. I blew it bad. I think I had like 4 of 13 correct. I liked the underdogs last week and didn't pay off. But the one thing I do love most about this site is the format. It takes away the professionals' advantage, kind of gives everyone an equal chance to win. So, I mean, unlike those other DFS sites where, the majority of them that do win those pots are professionals, they kind of don't have an advantage in this format. So I do like that. One stipulation is you have to be a Canadian resident in order to play. And depends on when you are listening to this. They do have a free play this week for, like I mentioned, American Thanksgiving for everyone who has signed up and deposited. The way it works is they do require you to deposit something, and it is a free play. They do initially take your $5 bet, but they do refund it right back immediately. Kind of takes away from the people that are just signing up for the free play, right? So good on them. But I got my lineup in, so there's a couple good bets there that we're going to bet on. So if you haven't done so yet, head over to www.247clash.com, sign up, make a deposit, use the referral code NORTH, and start playing this weekend. And if not, get into the free one tomorrow. So, or today, whichever day you're listening to this, because it will be released tonight. So basically, happy now on to our week 12 vote, slouch, and the sneaky episode. And I will let you kick it off with your number one guy this week.
Whoa,
quarterback.
Whoa, not like last week, eh? Last week you took the reins and just wanted the first go yourself.
I was more excited last week, and I did actually do quite well last week. Thank you very much. But
me too. Me too. I did well.
I'll let you take the reins today, Javi.
Okay. Well, I'll start in Seattle. There's no buys this week, so I mean. These guys, I think a guy like Geno Smith, if even though there's no buys, you could fire him up. He's thrown multiple passing touchdowns in 8 of his last 10 games, and he's topped 18 fantasy points in all but 2 of them. He's also been rushing the ball pretty good, over 20 yards in three of his last 5, and plus he's got a really good matchup this week against the Raiders, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to QBs. I think, like I said, he's got a good matchup, and I mean, don't expect Smith to do what he did last week every week, but even with the no buys, like I said, Smith is still a QB who should be started.
I agree with you 100%. I think he's going to be able to do whatever he wants to this passing defense, because I mean the Raiders are trash. And you know what? It's not crazy to think that I would start him over guys such as like a Russ Wilson, even an Andy Dalton, stuff like that. definitely the one of my guys that I'll talk about who's my slouch this week. We'll talk about him when we get there, but I love that call. I do think I mean, you can talk about all those guys in that offense, Metcalf, you'd lock it, maybe even throw Fant in there.
Yeah.
Those guys are all startable this week against this offense, or this defense. The guy I'm vouching for is the guy I believe you vouched for last week was Jimmy G.
Jimmy G.
To be honest, this guy has been as consistent as they come at the position. He's averaging just over 17 fantasy points per game this year. And he's really only, since he became starter, he's really only had one brutal fantasy game, and that was in week 10. That was the only time that he ever put up single fantasy points. So, I mean, he's coming off that huge 4-touchdown game on Monday night, and he should continue to put up fantasy points this week against a Saints team who have allowed over 19 fantasy points over the last, or to the position the last 3 weeks. And as far as I'm concerned, you can fire Jimmy G up with confidence this week. And I personally think it's not out of the realm of possibility. Is that the right saying? Out of the realm of possibility? Is that
Finish
right?
the sentence and we'll find out.
That he could come back and throw another 4 touchdowns in this high-scoring game.
Whoa, no, that's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Is that the right saying?
Yeah, oh yeah, you hit it.
I feel so smart right now, guy. Nice. But yeah, I am definitely firing. I'm vouching for Jimmy G this week. Pretty face Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Be the man. Be the man.
Yeah, he's got nothing but big playmakers around him, and he just has to get the balls in their hands, and they do most of the work for him.
Exactly. I mean, basically, you got a bunch of guys that are pretty much are all after the catch receivers, right? I mean, these guys are gaining tons of yards after the catch. So, yeah, Jimmy G, you are my man.
Yeah, buddy.
Who's your slouch this week, Abby?
My slouch is your vouch from last week, Danny Dimes. Again, a tough matchup against Dallas, who has allowed 12.7 fantasy points per game to QBs this season, the fourth fewest in the NFL. The defense also leads the NFL with 42 sacks, so we could see Jones running for his life a lot this week. He did salvage decent fantasy numbers last week with the one passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. But in the tough matchup this week, I think he's going to struggle. And we've seen him struggle against good defenses in the past. And earlier this season, we've already seen the Cowboys limit Jones to just 196 yards and an interception. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of the same story because the Cowboys are really rolling right now.
I agree with you. It actually, what scares me about both, I mean, you could go on both sides of those balls. I mean, Prescott, not necessarily you're benching, most likely you're not. I have him in a league. I can't bench him in. But I think this game is going to be purely a rushing game. So, I mean, Zeke, Pollard, Barkley, even Breida, I think those are the guys you're going to see. You're going to hear those names a ton this week because both these defenses are pretty good against the pass.
Yeah.
So, I like that for sure. I thought he was do a little bit more than he did last week, but against Dallas, I would agree with you. I'm not starting him if I don't have to. Now, my slouch, and I would start Geno Smith over this guy, is the one and the only Aaron Rodgers at the Eagles. I mean, realistically, Rodgers has been putting up pretty decent numbers back-to-back games. He's putting up almost 20 fantasy points per game, averaging over
apparently with a broken wrist or something.
I did hear something about that today. But over 220 yards passing and almost 3 touchdowns per game. But this is the week I think he's going to come back to reality. We're going to see him struggle against an Eagles team who's basically realistically dominated the quarterback position all year long. There's been a few games that they've kind of had hiccups in, but I mean, the Eagles defense is leading the league in interceptions at 13 on the year. Also leads the league in fewest fantasy points to the position. 9.5 fantasy points per game. So, I mean, do you want to be starting Rodgers against knowing that this Eagles team's on the other side of the ball playing against them? I'm not. So,
I got a question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
Because he's not on either of our slouches, would you sit Christian Watson this week?
I don't know how they are as far. I don't think there's going to be much going on for that offense in general. So, yeah, probably I would.
Yeah.
I mean, because Christian Watson isn't a guy that you've drafted to, as your elite guy, your, wide receiver 1, 2, or even 3, maybe even, Christian Watson's a guy you're going to get off waivers. He has had huge weeks the last 2 weeks, but it's got to come to an end. If he does it again against this defense, I guess he's a fire-up start every single week. Hey, what's up, Molly?
Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, you got to go upstairs.
Hey, Daddy, am I allergic to something?
I don't know. You got to go upstairs.
Like anything.
Okay. Jesus.
I just see her pop her head in.
Pop her head in.
But like I was saying, if he does it every single week, I guess you could fire him up. But I'm not trusting. I'm not trusting him this week.
All right.
And as far like I was mentioning, as far as Rodgers goes, I mean, I would rather be, I'd rather be starting guys like I mentioned earlier, Jimmy G. I'd even start Taylor Heineke over Rodgers this week.
Yeah. I mean, Heineke's he's running that offense pretty good right now.
Yeah, he is. He's the man there now. He's the man. So, all right. Well, on to the running back position. Who's your guy this week?
All right, the RBs. My guy is Devin Singletary. Hold on, pulling up my notes here. Here we go. Okay. Yep. Devin Singletary against the Lions. He's coming off a good week, scoring 17.7 fantasy points and finishing as an RB1 against a good defense in the Browns. 18 for 86 and a score. He has now carried the ball at least 13 times in 4 of his last 5 games and scored 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games combined. Those numbers are pretty good, and we're starting to see that maybe the Bills are trying to run the ball a little bit more to at least get the ball out of Allen's hands a little bit, because he's beat up a little bit. So they're trying to get their run game going. And I think this week's matchup against Detroit is pretty good. They've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards in the NFL this season. And if the Bills do get ahead, I don't think maybe for the rest of the season, I don't think they're just going to crush teams. I think they're going to try and do a little ground and pound once they get ahead.
I would agree with you. I think there was a lot of hype about James Cook and the yardage and carries he had last week, but I do still think that Singletary is ahead of him, and I do think that you're going to see Singletary get in the end zone again this week against Detroit.
Yes.
My guy is going to be the good running back tandem of Rachaad White and Lenny Fournette. If Lenny Fournette plays. If Lenny plays. That is. So as of right now, all I've read on him is he's sore. So he's probably pretty much day to day. So, but as of right now, either way, if it's just Rachaad White, I'm firing Rachaad White up. But I'm not afraid to start both these guys. I usually, have a tendency to avoid situations like this, like a Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb kind of situation. But this week's a little bit different. Both backs have looked pretty good as of late, even though the Bucs are wanting to lean on White a little bit more. Both backs, I think, are startable this week. The Bucs face the Browns this week coming off their bye. Browns are ranked 30th in the league against opposing running backs. Now, as far as this goes, they're allowing just over 26 fantasy points to position on the year, and not to mention over the last 3 weeks, they've given up over 30 per game to their to running back. So those are huge numbers. I mean, so you want to split that up. I mean, if you're getting 15 points out of your running backs, you're laughing in fantasy. Now, keep an eye on Fournette's practice participation, like I mentioned earlier. If he is out, then you're firing up White as a solid RB2 regardless, but you could be flexing Lenny if he is out there, because I do think that there's going to be enough for both these backs to produce, especially in the second half of the game, where I do feel as though, I mean, this game could go. I think Tampa Bay crushes Cleveland, to be real.
Yeah, and I do think they're going to try and keep the ball on the ground, and we've seen a lot of explosiveness out of White's in this last month, so it's good to see that in Tampa. We haven't seen a young, good running back there in a while.
Yeah, I would agree. Why don't I?
Right.
I'm going to change it up. I want people to hear me again. I'm doing my slouch now. Oh yeah, you heard me.
That's
you heard me, Abby. Oh, it is bullshit, but I'm doing it. My slouch is Travis Etienne against the Ravens. It's been impressive over the last 6 games, double-digit fantasy points in 5 of those, and has 4 touchdowns in that span as well. The numbers are great, but over the last 2 weeks, he has struggled with efficiency. He's averaged under 4 yards per carry, and really, if it wasn't for his 2 touchdowns last week, we basically would not even be talking about him, really. Like, I mean, because his stat line was brutal. I think it was like he had just over a total of like 45 yards all game. So, but the fact he had those 2 scores, I mean, that's huge in fantasy. That's what you want. So
they gave him looks in the red zone, so that's keeping him the fantasy points that are relevant for him.
Yeah, and now I'm starting to realize, because today it came out that they had claimed Darrell Henderson off waivers now.
Oh,
that should be a little bit concerning, I think, for Etienne owners moving forward.
Junk.
But we'll see. I'd like to know what the hell is going on in that and with the Rams, but nonetheless, Jags are coming off the bye and now face one of the best run defenses in the Ravens. In the last 3 weeks, the Ravens are allowing an average of under 9 fantasy points to opposing running backs, which doesn't bode well for Etienne this week. So,
I got another question for you.
Sure.
Would you start Etienne, Wilson, or Carter?
Out of those 3, I would rank Wilson, Carter, Etienne.
Okay. Whoa, at the bottom. All right.
Yep.
Duly noted.
All about matchups, man. So, if possible, I'm avoiding Etienne this week. So he is my slouch.
All right.
Give it to me, Javi.
I'm going to take your advice, and if you sewer me, oh man, there will be repercussions. My slouch this week is a man who is coming off his best week of the season, and I just want to make sure that people don't get sucked into the fan on this guy, Damian Harris from the Patriots. Like I said, coming off his best game since week 4, scoring 11.3 fantasy points against the Jets. We all know the Jets' pass defense is one of the best in the league, so teams have been able to sort of run on them, and we've seen it last week. But I think that this week against Minnesota, and people are picking up Harris and might even throw them into their lineups, and I'm saying don't do it. Because before last week, Minnesota was good, one of the better teams in the run game. They ranked middle of the pack. They did get lit up against Dallas by Pollard and Zeke. But I think this week we could see a better Minnesota defense, especially against a team that can't throw the ball very good. They're probably going to sort of stack the box because I mean, Stevenson and Harris are probably their best two offensive weapons. I think the Pats offense was is just not very good if they're not able to throw the ball. And I think if despite what you saw last week out of Harris, don't get him in your starting lineups.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think we're going to see him on the field a little bit more, but I don't see much production coming out of either back this week. So I would agree with you there. Now, next one, Javi, give me your vouch for the wide receiver position.
Oh,
You go
back to back.
You betcha.
Okay. Oh, changing it up. All right. Well, my vouch is Michael Pittman Jr.
Trash.
From the Indianapolis Colts. As long as Matt Ryan is a starting quarterback, we've seen very consistent numbers out of Pittman. And I don't think that's going to change. On the year, Pittman is averaging 10 targets per game, 7.3 catches, 75 yards, and 15.97 fantasy points per game with Ryan. The yards of fantasy points are cut nearly in half when Ryan isn't playing. So while he was out, we saw Pittman's numbers take a nosedive, but I think Ryan's here to stay for the rest of this season, so we won't have to worry about that. And this week, they got a good matchup in the Steelers, who allowed the most fantasy points per game to receivers this season. In the last month, they have allowed 36.97 points per game. And so, I mean, it's something to be exposed. Pittman continues to consistently get the numbers every week, and he's the wide receiver too, with upside this week with a good matchup.
Okay, I do like that call. I also like, if I have a question for you.
Well, go.
Okay, I'm in a matchup this week. It's pretty much a must-win. My receivers are Evans, Sutton. I do have Paris Campbell on my bench. Do you like Campbell over Sutton this week? Because in my flex in that I have Miles Sanders, because I have Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, and Dameon Pierce on that team.
You know what? I think you can. I think he shows enough that he brings a pretty safe floor and a pretty high ceiling with Ryan.
All right. Okay, so my last question for you. Who are you dropping out of Kareem Hunt or James Robinson? I need to drop one of them.
Robinson.
Okay, I'm doing all that right now. And I'm telling you, and if I lose, our friendship might be over, Habby. You guys might never hear Habby's voice ever again on this show. All right, J-Rob, take a back seat. Gonzo. Someone else can have him. Campbell in my lineup. Boom. Done deal. All right, back to the show. Where were we? Oh, yeah.
We're on your slouch.
My vouch.
Oh, your vouch, yeah.
My vouch. So this guy that I have could have been my sneaky sleeper, but I decided to say, no, I'm going all in with this boy. Talked about him over a waiver wire show. Demarcus Robinson against the Jaguars. Kind of been up and down last 3 weeks for Robinson. He's had 64 yards, 12, and then 100, blew up for 128 yards last week. He has seen 8+ targets in 2 of the last 3 games, and he has a steady role in this passing offense. I think the Ravens now, they are realizing that they can't just be run the ball every single down. They're going to have to spread the ball around. And I think Robinson's stepping in there as that solid second option for him behind Mark Andrews. The matchup this week against the Jaguars is a good one, considering the Jags have allowed an average of just over almost 30 fantasy points per game this year, which is the 8th highest in the league. So, I mean, the potential for Robinson to put up good fantasy numbers is very high this week. I think you can fire him up as a wide receiver 3/flex this week.
Woo! There you go. Good matchup. I like it.
I don't know. Riley's not a big fan. He wasn't during our waiver show, but I mean, he's the clear-cut number one guy on the outside.
Yes.
So I mean, I don't know. You can't avoid that. So fire him up and thank me later. Who are you? Who's your slouch?
Oh, we're not doubling up anymore.
Okay, I'll double up. Okay, my slouch for the week is going to be
You're all over the map.
Adam Thielen against the Patriots. Let's be real. Thielen used to be that guy in fantasy that you would love to have on your team because
that's not your slouch.
Yes,
that's
it
not
is.
your slouch.
Yes,
Deontay Johnson.
No, I switched it. Sorry,
yeah.
I probably should have said. I probably
forgot
should
to
have
send me those notes, eh?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, but Thielen was always that guy because of his his opportunities in the red zone, his touchdown abilities and everything like that. But he's been nothing short of disappointing this year. He scored single-digit fantasy points in 3 straight games. Since TJ Hawkinson has joined the team, Thielen's not only lost targets to Hawkinson, but he's also losing those red zone looks like I was talking about. Those important ones that he had before Hawkinson was there are no longer. Last 3 games, Hawkinson has seen 6 targets in the red zone to Thielen's 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Thielen isn't an option this week against Patriots. They've only, who have allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game this season, 2 wide receivers, and have only allowed 4 touchdowns on the year. So, without touchdowns for Thielen, really, he's not doing much in that passing game anyways. So, in my opinion, you could drop Thielen because you can find better options and roll with them on the wire. I mean, that'll lead you through fantasy playoffs. So, Thielen, you are no longer your bum.
Yeah. And when we saw Hawkinson come in, like we knew that the biggest guy who is going to get who he's going to take the grabs away was from Thielen.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Don't start him. Get him out of your lineups. Kick him to the curb. Pabby, who's your slouch?
My slouch in the wide receiver position is Darnell Mooney. Been better as of late. He started off terrible, and you let us know every week. But he has topped 12 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. He goes up against a tough Jets secondary this week. It doesn't help that Chicago runs 50% of the time, so there's not much balls to be grabbed there for him anyway.
I'm more concerned with the fact who's going to be covering him. Most likely it's going to be Sauce Gardner.
Oh, man. He's getting sauced for sure.
He's getting sauce, definitely.
Yeah. He's getting shut down and covered in sauce. The Jets have allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to receivers this season, and this matchup with how much the Bears run the ball, and how good the Jets secondary is, and the fact that he's getting covered by Sauce, just shut him down, people. Shut him down.
Yeah, I'm not stepping anywhere near this. I mean, I think I'm okay. I'm confident in putting Montgomery in my lineups because I mean he's getting the volume, but yeah, you're basically going up against Sauce.
You may as well talk about the other sit from that Chicago offense. You got him as a slouch. May as well take the reins here, bud.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk. We'll jump over there. Cole Kmet. I mean, he is actually the tight end 2 in PPR right now. It's not because of his like crazy yardage catching. He's got 5 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. Yeah. We know how we talk about it every week, how weak this tight end position is. This week especially is going to be tough for Kmet to get going this week. And number 1, Justin Fields is banged up. And the fact that the Jets just don't let tight ends score, which has been exactly what Kmet has done all year long. Well, I guess in the last 4 weeks. So the Jets are only allowing just under 7 fantasy points to the position and have yet to allow a tight end to score this year. So, I mean, I'd like to stream someone like a Juwan Johnson, to be honest, instead of starting Kmet.
He's not still out there. He's gold right now. He is tight end gold right now.
You know what? Okay, waivers just cleared. I'm going to check right now.
Juwan? He's
only
definitely picked up. He's
Well,
like
he
top
better
5
be.
tight end like the last.
He was still 33. He was only
month.
33% available. He's only in Yahoo right now. He's only 32% owned.
Really?
Yeah,
That is surprising.
It's
to me.
crazy to me. Yeah.
Like that just tells me that people are hanging on to poopy tight ends and starting them every week.
Yeah. I've always streamed tight ends until I find someone that's great. Like Joe, Brad traded me Juwan Johnson, and he's been my starter every single week. So.
Yeah, I got him in Flea and my Yahoo pool, and I've started him for the last month.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, like I said, sit, commit, and carry on with your day. David Montgomery's the only guy I'm trusting in this offense this week.
All right. Well, let's go to my vouch for the tight end position. Dawson Knox. He finished with a season high 14 points last week, catching all 7 of his targets for 70 yards. He put season highs across the board, and he's also seen 13 targets in his last 2 games. The increased volumes means we can start to trust Knox. Again, he was a guy at the beginning of the season where he was drafted high and really let everybody down the first half of the season, but he's getting a little bit more looks. And it's good this week against the Lions, who have allowed 14.9 fantasy points per game to tight ends, the 4th most in the NFL. And I think Knox is in play for those who need help at the tight end, and there's probably lots of you out there that do.
Yeah, and how can you not? With the way that this offense rolls, and basically, yeah, you're confident starting him this week after what happened last week. So, yeah. I do like that call. My vouch is going to be Gerald Everett. You tried to talk about him last week. It didn't work out very well for you, though.
No. Wrong matchup.
Yeah. So, but basically, if he could come back from injury, he is basically locked in starter, locked in tight end 1 this week against the league's worst passing defense against tight ends, the Arizona Cardinals. So, I mean, he's averaging over 8 targets a game. And the Cardinals allowing almost 16 fantasy points to tight ends this year. So basically they only have 1 game all year that tight ends have not scored double-digit points. But Everett this week's the tight end 1 if he's healthy and can make it back.
All right.
So and now that you haven't gave me who's your slouch this week.
Yeah, my tight end slouch is going to be another guy who coming off his best week of the season. I don't want the people to get sucked into his fan either. Is Austin Hooper. Scored just under 20 points, and he was leading the way for tight ends until Kels showed up and put that to bed. But he caught 4 balls for 36 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was his first 2 touchdowns of the season. Prior to week 11, Hooper had not had a game with double-digit fantasy points. He has less than 6 fantasy points in 7 of the 10 games. He's not a good start, and he's in a tough matchup against the Bengals, who've allowed the fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends. So, I mean, if you're fishing for tight ends out there, just even though he's coming off a huge week, just keep him on the waiver wire.
That huge week was against the Packers too, so you kind of got to put that into perspective. Yeah, I'm not chasing that whatsoever. And now to go with my last pick of the week is going to be my sneaky play of the week. This is a guy that's going to be outside of my top 50. He's actually my 56th ranked. Actually, not my 56th ranked. It's consensus 56th ranked wide receiver out there right now. Zay Jones. Go back to this Ravens game. He continues to see steady targets share every single week. He's got a really good rapport with Trevor Lawrence. Jags play a Ravens team who's given up the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. And I just think Jones is going to see plenty of targets in this game. I think he could turn out to be a top 30 fantasy option by the end of the week.
That's a good sleeper. I like it.
Yeah. It was between him and Robinson, but I love Robinson this week. So
you did talk about Robinson.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. I was juggling which one of those guys I was going to put as my vouch, and I decided I'd vouch for D-Rob instead.
Where do you have Darius Slayton ranked on your list?
You want me to check right now? I could do that very quick.
Would he? Well, just tell me. Is he outside your top 50?
Probably inside, but yeah, maybe
Pretty
like
close?
46, 47. Yeah,
He is my sneaky start this week.
nice.
And it's not so sneaky because, I mean, when you look at who Jones is going to be firing the ball to, his name is at the top of the list right now.
Yeah,
Because of all their injuries, and they traded away Tony. So, I mean, Slayton has sort of put himself in a good spot. He's got 13.6 fantasy points last week, catching 5 passes for 86 yards against the Lions. And he's now topped 11 fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. Since week 5, Slayton is averaging 12.5 fantasy points per game. Since that span, Slayton has a 21% target share and a 36% air yard share. So, I mean, I think it's going to continue, and I think that he could get more volume now that even there's been a couple more injuries to Wanda Robinson tore his ACL last week, so he's gone. And I think that Slayton could get a little bit more production too.
yeah, and he's like you mentioned, he's been very productive, and he's the only guy left. So,
Yeah.
so, I mean, they're going to have to throw the ball against. You're going to have to throw the ball against. Who the hell are they playing this week? Cowboys, right?
Yes, Cowboys. Yeah,
Cowboys this week. So, yeah, they're definitely going to have to throw the ball. And yes, Slayton is one of those guys that's just going to volumes king. So,
and Dallas, they can be exposed to deep. I think we could see Slayton catch a couple deep balls against them. They've allowed 38.2 fantasy points per game to receivers over the last month, which ranks 6th in the NFL. So, I mean, we could see that part of Dallas's defense get exposed a little bit.
Actually, I'm not lying to you, buddy. A lot of people do have him way down there on the list. I don't. I actually have him as my wide receiver 25 this week.
Oh,
so I am just as high on him as you are. So I do like it. So, but awesome. Glad we were able to fire this show out. And also, once again, if you haven't already done so, and depending on when you're listening to this, www.247clash.com. Go sign up, use referral code North, deposit some money, and play some pools, some player versus player based on fantasy points games with us starting this weekend. Like I mentioned earlier in the show too, if you get in there quick, depending on when you're listening to the show, they are offering a free pool for American Thanksgiving games starting Thursday morning. So get in there, do that. Outside of that, Habby, I'm going to try to get a recap show done at some point next week. Last week I was going to do it, but of course I hurt myself at hockey.
Yeah, big injury.
So wasn't able to do that, but hopefully I'll be back to throw out a show on Sunday. I miss talking, doing those recap shows. So
I'll be in Irma, Alberta.
That's right. But outside of that, guys, thanks again for listening. Thanks for the support and all the feedback. And until next week, peace.